trust that some people have in God is important. So some people like Lakshman, and some people like Hanuman, and some people like the uh, what was the name of the
Bharat.
yeah, Bharat. Uh, 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 if we uh, look at some evil people and uh, compare them to Bharat, uh, we see that Bharat never thought of taking over the kingdom that actually belonged to Rama. He, during the exile of Rama, he put Rama's uh, uh, what do you call those
Padakas.
slippers,
Padakas, yeah.
yeah, politics, on the throne, and every day he would come and do all the responsibility for the managing the kingdom. He never sat on the throne. He put Rama's uh, shoes, let's say, on the throne, and never thought at any time that he was the king himself. He was always the servant of Lord Rama. Now, although his mother, she wanted him to become the king. She did everything, to get rid of Rama, and Bharata always kept his faith and respect for his brother Rama, and never at once had an evil thought in his mind about usurping the kingdom. So, if you uh, uh, if you compare the behavior of Bharat and that of Ravana, you see that Bharat is an exceptional person because Rama is the supreme personality of Godhead. He always remains surrendered to Rama, and Ravana was trying to destroy Rama. He thought that by kidnapping Sita, uh, Rama would be uh, bereft, and he would not be. He would lose his powers because he thought that Rama was powerful because he had such a beautiful wife. And so by kidnapping Sita, he thought that Rama would become a wimp. He would be, and it looked like that for some time. As Rama was had tears in his eyes, and he was looking everywhere for Sita. But Ravana was defeated because Sita was always, uh, let's see, faithful to her husband, and uh, uh, and Rama never gave up his love and devotion, or let's say his love and attachment to his wife. He could have said, "Look, I lost this one wife, but I can go and get 100,000 more wives if I want." No, he was absolutely adamant of getting Sita back, and she was actually in the control, or well, let's say not control, but she was actually uh, with Ravana for about almost a year, and but she never gave in to Ravana. Ravana promised her. He said, "Look, if you surrender to me, I will take you on my super vimana and all over the universe, show you all the wonders of the universe. I will surrender to you. Mandadari will also surrender to you. We will all, be uh, let's say, your slaves, and you'll be very happy and so forth." And basically, Sita said, "Listen, when someone has seen a swan, uh, they are not interested in a crow." So she never even had one thought of being enamored by Ravana's different promises, and she remained always faithful to Rama. Now, this is the life of a real devotee. We should not be enticed by any promises of sense gratification in the material world because it's an illusory thing. And those sense gratifications eventually become just dreams as a person gets older and not able to engage in sense gratification like before. And they just live with these illusory dreams the rest of their life, meditating on the different engagements of sense gratification they had when they were younger. So it's important that we meditate on the actions of Lord Rama and the behavior of Lord Rama, because he is the paradigm of loyalty, a paradigm of a genuine husband, and also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's different ways of understanding epic, let's say, pastimes of great personalities. And Rama, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, do you think that we can go through life without any problems? No. Rama is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he had to face many problems. And what he did, he gave an ideal example of a son and husband, and in all terms of being an ideal person. His example established the culture of Sanatana Dharma in Bharat. So, and so did his brother Bharat exemplify what it means to be a brother and a faithful servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was never one thought in Bharat's mind of taking over the kingdom, although Bharat's mother tried everything to get rid of Rama and put her son in that position. But Bharat faithfully managed the kingdom without ever sitting on the throne, and worshiped the padukas or the feet or the foot sandals of Lord Rama, and never thought of usurping the power of taking position of the king. So, if you see the level of dedication, pure desires to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, purity of thought and action of Bharat, now you see what it means to be a real person. And real people have principles, and those principles are based on Vedic Dharma. Dharma means how you should act according to the instructions of Krishna. Now, the Vedas are very instructive, of course, but the highest instruction is seen in the actions of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, we can't emulate Krishna, but we can learn how to act by following the instructions of Krishna. Now, we can't do supernatural things like Krishna can do, but we can follow the instructions of Krishna. And this is where people get confused sometimes. They think, well, Krishna was able to lift Govardhana Hill, and I'm going to try and imitate that. That's not possible. In no way is it possible. We can't even lift the tables. how are we going to lift Govardhan Parvat? However, we can learn uh, from his example of complete, let's say, respect and surrender to his mother, to following the principles of Dharma, and above all, being uh, equal to all living entities. So he can live as a king in Ayodhya, or he can live in the forest, and without all the uh, pomp and which we call the opulence of being a king in Ayodhya, and he's still the supreme personality of Godhead. He hasn't in any way been diminished. In fact, he's glorified because by being exiled, he helped the lowest living entities that were living in the forest, and they became Krishna conscious by associating with him, whereas most people avoid the lowest types of human beings and and just stay in the safety of a big city and enjoy, the opulences of living in a big city. But Lord Rama went to the forest, met all kinds of people. And there were some were not even human beings, like Jatayu. Jatayu was a very let's say low uh, type of bird and a vulture, but yet he was a devotee of Lord Rama, and he was a lover of the Lord, and he died in the arms of the Lord, looking straight into his face. So this is these are some of the messages that we get from the Ramayana, and how the Supreme Personality of God is equal to everyone and reciprocates according to the living entity's love for him. So if we have very little love, well, the reciprocation is not intense at all. But if we have unadulterated love for Krishna, then there's unadulterated, let's say, give and take with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is here in the heart. He knows what our desires are. Krishna is always ready to help his devotee and is always waiting patiently, witnessing everything that we do, witnessing what our desires and so forth. And therefore, there's a saying, man proposes, God disposes. So we have to be careful what we desire. If we desire only Krishna, then Krishna will reciprocate by revealing himself to us. But if we desire a mixed, let's say, palette of desires, some good, some bad, some horrible, then we become stuck in the cycle of birth and death. So the real purpose of human life is to develop love and devotion for Krishna or Rama and go back to Godhead. When that is taught in schools, then society will be changed. We will have a God, let's say, a God, godly society where people avoid all sinful activities and live peacefully. And but even in the time of Rama, there was war, unfortunately, because there are always some living entities that are not going to accept being surrendered to God. So we should not be afraid of that. That's just, if Lord Rama went through all travails to bring back bring back his wife and kill Ravana and so forth, then you have to understand that's just part of life living in the material world. It's not actually what we're supposed to, the place that is ideal for us to live. So some people, they're trying to find an ideal place to live forever in the material world, and you cannot find such a place, because the material world is actually not a wonderful place. It's full of miseries. So therefore, the devotee makes the best of a bad bargain by following the principles of Krishna consciousness in the material world, which is full of miseries. But if you practice Krishna consciousness, then you're not affected by the miseries, and you don't participate in any of the sinful activities. And that is the way to live a godly life. You meditate always on transcendental pastimes of the Lord, and you do not engage any of the sinful activities, although they seem enticing sometimes in the material world. And then there are so many people engaged in sense gratification that sometimes you just think, well, maybe I should join them. Maybe it's the right way to live. Everybody else is doing it. Why should I be different? But actually, it's a test by Krishna to see whether we have any real love for him or not. And actually, not being attracted by sense gratification is the principle by which we become a devotee. We lose our attraction for sense gratification, and we engage only in Krishna conscious activities with the help of bona fide guru and gurus, and always keep our mind focused on pleasing Krishna. In fact, this is the most important, let's say, instruction that can be taught to people, especially the children. We should have a test of how to make the right decision. That test is what I'm going to do going to be pleasing to Krishna or not? And if it's not pleasing to Krishna, we shouldn't do it. And if it is pleasing to Krishna, then we should do it. Now, the next thing is we have to learn what those things are that are pleasing to Krishna. Well, obviously, Krishna is in our heart, so we can't hide anything from him. And when he sees that we are regularly chanting the holy names of the Lord, engaging in devotional service, and being merciful to others by helping them understand Krishna consciousness, and chanting regularly, and basically following all the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, Krishna is pleased. He's not pleased when people are engaged in sense gratification and they're engaged in lusty behavior and forgetfulness of Krishna. And see, we have to forget Krishna in order to engage in simple activity. Now, who can help us forget Krishna? Well, it's Krishna himself, because he gives knowledge and forgetfulness. So as soon as we become always meditating on the desire for sense gratification, then at a certain point, Krishna said, well, okay, that's what you want, then I'll have to help you. Because we can't really do anything, whether it's pious or impious, without the help of Krishna. This is what is very interesting, because we think that we are independent. We are not independent. Every action we take is controlled by laws of material nature, which are under the control of Krishna. So if you want to be a bad person, you need Krishna's help. If you want to be a good person, you need Krishna's help, both ways. So it's better to get Krishna's help to be a good person, and eventually if we develop love and devotion for Krishna, we'll be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, which means no more problems. But if we want to be a bad person, well, Krishna will help us, but we have to suffer the consequences of karma and suffer. So we see a lot of suffering in the material world, a lot. You can look at the newspapers or look at the news, and you can see that many people are suffering all over the world. Now, why is that? Because they're not Krishna conscious, and they're getting education that keeps them anchored in acts that are not pleasing to the Lord, and therefore nationalism, all the isms are wrong. And the only ism that's not wrong is Krishnaism, but that's not an ism, that's Krishna consciousness. But all the other isms are wrong because they're based on the body. So you have different types of philosophies, different types of desires, different types of activities, all based on sense gratification, and therefore it keeps us prisoners in the material world. Everyone is a prisoner. No one is actually independent, although some people believe they're independent and nobody controls them, but everybody is being controlled by the modes of material nature in the material world. And because of that, we go through repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. So when we begin to understand Krishna consciousness, we give up all our attempts for sense gratification and take up all our attempts to please the senses of Krishna. That's basically what Krishna consciousness is. Instead of trying to please our own senses, we instead try and please the senses of Krishna. And he has senses. He has eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. He's not an it. He's a supreme personality of Godhead. Some people, like Mayavadis, they don't think that God has a body and that God is a person. And they don't really engage in trying to please the senses of Krishna. They worship God in the form of light or God in the form of energy. You'll see, there's many different types of, Aboriginal people living in forests and living in mountains and things like that. And they worship, they also have worship, but they worship powerful things like eagles and other, like a mountain or like a deep, like, lions and things like that. But anything that's very powerful and overwhelming. But the devotees are not fooled by all those types of worship. And everybody has worship, even the demons have worship. Ravana was worshiping, and his son was also worshiping, but they were worshiping sometimes demigods, sometimes they were worshiping anything that is powerful, because that's what they're interested in, is attaining power. So they do sometimes horrible types of tapasya where they mutilate parts of their bodies and offer their skin or something to the fire of puja. So this is all demoniac activity. The attempt to mutilate the body in form of sacrifice is demoniac, and there's a lot of that going on now. And some kids will mutilate their body, and in order to attain some powers. The more you engage in sinful activity, some people believe, the more powerful you become. Therefore, sometimes they engage in human sacrifices. And it happens even today, which is shocking. You'd think people would get civilized over time, but no, they still have those animalistic tendencies due to bad association, and they want to become powerful. So they sometimes kill people to become powerful. The more evil you perform, the more power you get, but you will be eventually defeated. And that's the whole story of the Ramayana, that sinful people will never be successful. They'll always be defeated by the forces of good. So Ravana was so powerful, and he was powerful because he was not afraid to kidnap Sita Devi. And he thought that Lord Rama's power was coming from the fact that he had such a beautiful wife, and if he could kidnap his wife, then Rama would be powerless. Well, that was not true. But for him, power meant also that he would have a very beautiful wife, and he would be able to give his wife all kinds of opulences, and she would become surrendered to him. Well, it worked with some thousands of women, but not with Sita. and he told her, you surrender to me, and I'll be your slave, and all my wives. And he had 1,000 ladies that were under his control. We will all be your servants. And she told him point blank. She said, somebody who's seen a swan is not interested in a crow. so then he said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a couple of weeks to change your mind, and if you don't, I'm a Rakshasa. I'm going to kill you and eat you. That's what the Rakshasas do. They eat human beings. So just like, some people eat hot dogs, and the Rakshasas, they eat human beings, So, and by the way, those people that do eat hot dogs, they're very close to being Rakshasas, So we should learn a lot of lessons from the Ramayana, because the Ramayana and the behavior of Lord Rama and also Bharat, Shatrughna, and so forth, it became the guiding, let's say, principles for Sanatana Dharma, for the culture of Bharat. And it still is today, but it's become weakened by material opulence and sense gratification. But previously, everyone was always hear the Ramayana and abide by the lessons of the Ramayana. That was the culture of India. And what is the lessons of Ramayana? You could see how Lord Rama respected his father, and he was always respectful to his guru, and also Lord Rama was the paradigm of a son and a brother, and so he exemplified what it means to be a genuinely spiritual person, where you are not trying to control others, but you are submissive and depend on the mercy of God rather than the mercy of powerful people. Most people today are trying to get the mercy of powerful people. Therefore, they'll try and work for them, they'll try and glorify them and kowtow to them. But when one is only surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and follows the instructions of the Sanatana Dharma and Krishna's words, they're no longer attracted by powerful people and And if you see that even today, the society glorifies rich people and their way of living, and sense gratification, beautiful houses and beautiful cars and going to big parties and dressing up nice and so forth, and that's being glorified in the newspapers and in the news, and then people all of a sudden say, "Well, gee, I wish I could be like that." Right? And they try to be like that in many ways, but that is not the real purpose of life. That's a very, very artificial, let's say, values that does not lead to sustained transcendental life. One can, it's better to be humble and meek and worship Krishna and depend completely on Krishna than to become arrogant and powerful and rich and basically control people. Uh, People like to somehow or other be close to rich people so that they can advance in life, but they just turn out to be slaves basically. So devotees are self-sufficient. They don't depend on anyone else. Whereas materialistic people, they become controlled by big sense gratifiers, and they become, let's say, they're slaves. If you look at, let's say you're working in Amazon, basically you're working like a slave, although you're making money, but it's a slavish type of life, and basically the goal is to make Jeff Bezos rich. It's not to go back to Godhead, definitely. And it's not like serving Krishna. So, but people have different desires. Money is something that's present sometimes, and sometimes it disappears. But love for Krishna is steady and always grows, and it is full of transcendental emotions. Those transcendental emotions would keep devotees on the path of Krishna consciousness. And so today is a day of transcendental emotion. We're hearing about the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra and what it means to be an ideal son, an ideal brother, and an ideal person. And that is one level of understanding Lord Ramachandra, but there are other levels that are more important. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but yet he is subordinating himself, teaching us by his example how to act properly. So there's a saying that example is better than precept. So and you can look that up. It's a proverb. So he's taking the position of an ideal person who's surrendered to his father and to his wife also. I mean, his wife was kidnapped. He could have said, well, it's just one woman, there's millions of other women I can have. So I'll just forget about Sita and just get more wives. No, he spent a long, difficult period trying to get his wife back. So that type of loyalty and dedication to duty rather than dedication to self-indulgence is something that has become, a paradigm for men for millions of years now. The behavior of Lord Rama and the behavior of Bharat. So we should stick to these transcendental pastimes of the Lord. And you'll see that in those pastimes, there's periods where the Lord has to go through very difficult situations. And but he doesn't abandon his principle of faithfulness to it, or to vows that he has made. A person is actually identified by the vows that they follow, just like you have the vow of marriage. Now, previously, when people got married, there was no divorce. You know. And you even read about it today, two people get married when they're very young and they stay together throughout their whole lives. And oftentimes they die together. The husband might die first, and then very quickly after that, the wife dies, or the wife dies first, and very quickly after that, the husband dies. And they publish this in the newspaper. They've been married 68 years, and they died almost the same time. Right? So that is not the ideal, let's say, purpose of life, dying together. But you can see how there is this a little bit of purity in living together for so long, and eventually, because one dies, the other one also wants to die. And this was actually this is not too far fetched, because in the past also, when the husband died, often the wife would want to commit suicide to be with her husband. Now, I don't know if that's what actually happens after they die, but many times, this is in ancient times, the wife would also die after unless there were some children, like in the case of what's her name? Yeah, Pandu. Pandu had several wives, and when he died, one of the wives said, I'm gonna also commit suicide. But you, huh? Madri, yeah, but you stay and take care of the children. So these type of activities were actually more common in the past. Nowadays, it's sometimes the husband dies, the wife said, "Oh, good riddance. Do now. You don't have to have anything to do with that person." So, culture has changed a lot, but the principle should be make the best of a bad bargain. So almost everything we do in the material world is a bad bargain, because it leads to suffering. So we have to make the best of a bad bargain, and the only way you can do that, the best, is to take up Krishna consciousness, and then you can more or less tolerate all situations that you're in. If you only feel sorry for yourself in the situation you're in, you'll never be happy. But if you try to make the best of the situation you're in by becoming Krishna conscious, and you can tolerate it. You can tolerate being in bad marriage. You can tolerate being poor. You can tolerate having different sicknesses, or having congenital diseases and so forth. You can tolerate all those situations if you're Krishna conscious. But without Krishna consciousness, life becomes intolerable. And nowadays, there's a new thing that's become very popular. It's healthy people who want to die, and now you're allowed to be killed legally if you want to die. And now and then you have to go to the doctor. He has to analyze you, make sure you're not crazy, that this is something that's sincere that you want to do. And then they give you the green light that, okay, this person can kill themselves legally. They got to push the button. The doctor can't push the button, but they can push the button. So this is a new phenomenon. Well, I don't know if it's new, but it's shocking new phenomenon in society today that people can choose to die when they're perfectly healthy.
It sounds like a suicide, right?
Yeah, it is suicide, but it's legal suicide. Whereas before, you were thought to be crazy, they put you in an asylum to watch you and stop you from it. But now they let you kill yourself, So it's very sad how society is changing. And the end result of it all is that there's a deterioration of all good qualities. People just develop very selfish qualities. The desire to kill yourself is a very selfish thing. And what they don't realize is, see, why do they want to die? Because they think when you die, everything is over. But that's not true. They're going to be in a much worse position after they die than when they were alive, because the soul is eternal. But now, when they die, they won't have a material, gross body to enjoy sense gratification, but they'll have all the desires for sense gratification. Now they're in a worse condition than before, because before they had a material body that could engage in sense gratification if they wanted to. And now they have a body of a ghost that still has these desires for sense gratification, but can't do anything about it because they don't have a material body. They have a subtle body. So it's the situation they achieve by committing suicide is much worse than having a gross body and the ability for sense gratification. So, but actually, the way to use the gross body and the subtle body, the mind and the intelligence, is to become Krishna conscious. That solves the whole problem. But by committing suicide, you don't solve any problem. You get into a much worse condition where you have the same desires, but you have no way of satisfying them. Okay? So they think that by committing suicide, everything is over. There's a complete non-existence. That's not true. And you see what happens when you follow a false narrative. You put yourself in a worse position. You believe something that is not true, and then you get into a worse position than you have. So it's better to make the best of a bad bargain by becoming Krishna conscious. But suicide will not put you in a better position of in other words, what they want to be annihilated. No more existence, no more consciousness. So they think that will be the solution to their problems. But no, they're still going to be conscious, but they won't have a gross body. They'll still have the same desires that were frustrated, that led them to commit suicide. But now they have no possibility of satisfying those desires. And the suffering is much worse. Of course, no one's explaining this to people who want to commit legal suicide. Their goal is to be annihilated. No more consciousness, no more existence. But that's not possible because the soul is eternal, right? And no more thoughts, no more desires. No, they're still going to be there because they're in the subtle body. You have two coverings of the soul. You have the gross body and the subtle body. The gross body is made of mind the gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and so forth. And the subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So if you kill the gross body, you still have the subtle body. And the subtle body has all the desires, unachieved, unattainable desires that you have, and memories and things like that. But now you don't have a gross body anymore to try and satisfy those desires. So you suffer worse by committing suicide than learning to deal with your problems with your gross body. So these are things that are not explained to people who want to commit suicide. Basically, they want to commit suicide so they don't think anymore, they don't suffer anymore, they have no existence anymore, and that's not true. It's not at all true, and they put themselves in a much worse situation. Okay, so that's what happens when you listen to people who preach nonsense. And there are many people who preach nonsense. Like sometimes you have these charismatic preachers, and they're basically very sick people, and they get a big following, and then the leader says, well, now we're going to end all our misery. And he has a massive, you know, let's say, self-killing thing where he gives everyone some poison, and he drinks first, and then everybody else drinks it, and they all die. And it happens not every day, but it happens. And with a charismatic leader who actually wants to have everyone commit suicide. So, best thing is not to be fooled by false prophets. A false prophet is someone who is trying to become God. And there's no such thing as trying to become God. Either you're God or you're not God, right? There's no way of becoming God, but that's what they're aiming at, and they'll go even to the extreme, let's say, effort to become God by committing suicide, and getting many other people to commit suicide at the same time. And there are many examples of this. Or they will have human sacrifices to become more powerful. Look at many examples of that. If you study ancient cultures, like the Inca culture or the Aztec culture, they had human sacrifices all the time. What was the purpose of the human sacrifice? Well, they thought that they would become more powerful by sacrificing human beings. So what a horrible thing that is. And they would have these big, fire sacrifices, and then and put human beings into the sacrifice, and I don't know, dance around the fire, I guess. It's horrible. But that was part of their culture. Today we have basically the same thing, but they don't dance around the fire. They give people, marijuana or different types of drugs, so they kill themselves. So that's the same thing. You're celebrating death rather than celebrating life. We have to be very careful not to associate with people who celebrate death. So there are a bunch of people now that celebrate death. So they mutilate their bodies, they put all kinds of things, pins and needles in their skin and their face, and they come together and all talk about horrible things and glorify death. They wear black clothes, and they have their own little ceremonies. And you see it even in high school. You see it. All of a sudden, one kid comes in and dressed all in black. Do you see that?
I saw it in high school.
Yeah, all black. That means that they're in a different culture now, and it is a culture. It's a demoniac culture, and they have music also that glorifies death. So So someone's there playing guitar, dum, 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 death, dum, 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 die, dum, 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 blood, and and this is their music culture. They're glorifying death. So we gotta be careful not to associate with people like that. Okay, so today is Lord Rama's appearance day, most auspicious day for making spiritual progress by fasting, by hearing about Lord Rama's activities, how he defeated Ravana, and how he got his wife back, Sita Devi, after she was kidnapped by Ravana. And you see how stupid demons are. They think if they could kidnap uh, the wife of Ravana, Sita Devi, then Rama would lose all his powers because he's getting his powers by having a beautiful wife. So that's again a false idea. As soon as these false ideas come into the mind, we do very strange things and crazy things. Now, we shouldn't do that. We should learn from Ramayana what is the truth. The truth is that, first of all, you can never defeat Rama. He's invincible. And no matter how powerful an evil person is, the evil person is going to ultimately become defeated. But you can only defeat evil by goodness, and especially transcendental goodness. So therefore, a culture where kids are trained to live in goodness and eventually transcendental goodness, then evil is defeated. But what is evil? Evil is convincing you to do things that are self-destructive, like smoking marijuana, engaging in illicit sex, taking drugs. But there are a lot of people doing that. You know how many people are using drugs? You have the sophisticated drugs and you have the low-class drugs. And people are taking them all the time now. Not everybody, but a lot of people. You want to look that up? How many people are taking drugs as a palliative to living a healthy life? You know, they take drugs to forget their problems. They take drugs for different reasons. But there are a lot of people doing that because they're stressed, and to sort of tolerate their stress, they take drugs. So anyway, having a healthy life where you don't mutilate your body, you don't accept into your body anything that is contaminating. So there are 9 holes of the body: 2 eyes, 2 ears, and the nostrils, the mouth, and anus, and so forth. What you enter into those holes will, in many significant ways, determine who you are. So if we only enter Krishna consciousness into our body and mind, then we have a healthy, happy life. But if we let other things into our bodies, then we become contaminated. So we have 9 holes of the body, and we have to close all those holes to contaminating things and only open them up for spiritual things. That way we are healthy and happy and wise. So what does it say? You looked it up.
There's about 10%
On the
of,
society
of people in the United States
that are taking drugs.
smoking marijuana.
Smoking marijuana.
Yeah,
10%.
yeah. It's probably more because this was done like 2 years ago.
Well, it's not only marijuana. If you put in,
Include the other drugs, it would be a lot.
a lot higher than that. Okay, so now we know that there was no time when Lord Rama smoked marijuana. So we shouldn't smoke marijuana. Although, like, it's become a big thing, in high school, smoke marijuana and do all kinds of nonsense. All right, well, thank you very much, and happy Ram Navami. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions?
The proverb that you asked to look online, the example is better than
Precept.
precept. It says it means that people should be an example for others before giving advice.
Yes. Yeah, because you can give advice, just like this one drunk guy, he came up to us on the street and said, "Don't drink alcohol." So he can't follow his own advice, right? But he's trying to help others, so don't drink alcohol, is bad for you. So that's not really convincing, because you have to be an example of what you're preaching. You can't have bad behavior and try and teach other people good behavior. Okay. It doesn't really work that well. So that's it. That's, example is better than precept means, you have some pie in the sky philosophy. It sounds really good, but you can't follow it yourself. So what good is it then? There you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No questions online.
Honeyball.
Hari Bol. Jai Shri Ram.
Hare Krishna.